And a pleasant good afternoon. There's our guest. You'll see him in just a second and hear him more. There we all are. I'm Ernesto Garcia, and this is the Mesilla Valley News Sports Podcast from the Broken Spoke Taphouse here today. And we are going to be talking some high school prep tennis here in just a bit. We'll get things started off first talking about some of the big headlines. Obviously, the Aggies are without a men's head basketball coach. Who's going to get that job? Well, we're going to find out sometime soon. Mario Mocha interviewing this week. James Miller's associate's head coach is interviewing for the job, one of the top candidates. But, of course, I think there's a lot of people online that have said it best. Wait and be patient. Let's see what they can bring out here. It is a business form, and trust me, this has become a big business. We don't have the big dollars to bring in a big-time coach, but there is a lot of chances and opportunities and some great parts here. And, of course, probably the next big stepping ground for whoever they get. We'll soon talk to Mario Mocha, hopefully in the next couple of days, or as the new men's basketball coach comes along. We got a few more weeks to go before we get to our spring finale. But, of course, we got a lot of spring sports going on. The big headlines are coming up right now as well, including Mike Tirico making it to Sunday Night Football, which was already expected. Al Michaels to Thursday Night Football. And on the tennis side, we'll get to that one with the big headline in that one in just a sec. But first, I want to remind people to come on out to the Broken Spoke Taphouse. Come on by. Great specials, great atmosphere. And I tell you what, we got the sun breaking in. We had clouds all afternoon. And then all of a sudden, the sun comes in here. And it was like, well, okay. So we didn't expect that to happen. But it is here. And we'll talk more about that throughout the evening about all the great specials, great drink specials. I want to thank everybody who came out for Midget Warrior Wrestling, part of the big activities that were going on a packed house here, up to capacity on St. Paddy's Day here at the Amador Live and at the Broken Spoke Taphouse. The Amador Eatery and Entertainment District certainly delivered along with the rest of downtown. Downtown, no doubt, is the place to be for St. Paddy's Day here in Las Cruces. And there was just some green beer. Oh, yeah, and an Aggie basketball win to make it good last Thursday. Amador Days is coming up. Make sure to get your tickets online through the Amador Live website or the Amador Live Facebook fan page. All right, we're going to talk about one other big headline that happened in tennis. Rafael Nadal is going to be out 6 weeks, fractured rib. And joining me to talk a little bit about that and along with more, what's going on in prep high school basketball, I got James Alba. He's a Centennial High boys and girls tennis coach. A broken rib, not something fun to play with in tennis, and he was playing through it in the last couple of tournaments.
Absolutely not. That's something, especially with your serve and your forehand, all that torque and the way those guys hit. Like, I've been at Indian Wells and sat 2 rows behind. That would hurt.
That would hurt. And I tell you what, I think he was playing because obviously trying to be competitive out there and go through. But tennis is a sport where you can hurt yourself pretty bad, and sometimes 100%. You can disguise it pretty well.
Yeah. But like I said, with the ribs, the extension on a serve and kind of going over your head. And those guys are athletes. I think sometimes people say, like, once we were talking before about tennis, like, isn't the athletes go watch a match and see the top spin on that ball and see guys that, who kind of led the way with that was Agassi as far as reformed himself in his 30s. And I'm actually reading his book right now. It's phenomenal. His autobiography.
What's his autobiography called?
I think it's called Open.
Open. Okay.
It's
there was some matches there that I would see him down 2 sets and he'd come back and rally and win. And I mean, you would just see the sweat on this man because he played for 3 hours or so 100%. Trying to come back in something like that. And we forget just how him and Pete Sampras really changed the game back 100%.
In that was our era, right? Monica Seles.
Later,
Steffi Graf. But yeah, those two. In the Nike commercials, remember when we were growing up? That was legit.
No, but you know what? It's funny. You and I can go back and talk history here. By the way, we're around the same age, so we were having a nice little conversation beforehand, talking about our high school days back in the day. And yes, those two dominated while we were in high school. But growing up, it was the McEnroe, it was the Borgs and Connors.
30 for 30. There's phenomenal 30 for 30s on that.
I love that. I love that those are there.
Excellent.
All right. Well, James Alba, he is the coach. Your team is already in mid-swing, and a couple of bridesmaids, never the bride scenarios for your team so far. How's your season gone up to this point? As you got a break this weekend, it looks like they made the scheduling work for spring break. Which I think you would have preferred everyone to play, but I'm sure that's what ended up happening. How's your season gone from that early part up to this point?
Yeah, like I said, so our guys, first off, give credit to the old coach. Her name's Kathy Albertson. She left me a phenomenal program. I believe the guys have won 6 district titles in a row for team. That's kind of what I'm about as the team of itself, but I ran into a really good boys program. And the girls graduated 5 out of the 6 seniors from the top 6. But like I said, they're rebuilding. So Grace Chang's the number 1. She went to state finals doubles last year, took 2nd. And then we have a freshman named Aaron Lee, it's going to be a stud, absolute stud. And with the 3 through 6 through 7, Some new people playing varsity have never played before, but we're working at it. And like I said, keeping it competitive out there. I like that Pete Carroll action. Get out there and let's compete. That's what we want to do.
You talk a lot of football, so you came from what type of background? Didn't seem like tennis was the first sport for you.
100%. Well, I'll give you a funny story. If you walk into the Pan Am and you look up at the sky and see number 35, that's my dad, Abelardo Alba. Is from Deming, and three of my uncles play at New Mexico State. He got into the Hall of Fame, so it's kind of a cool deal. You know what I mean? My brother was a stud at Oñate High School. Sorry, Oregon Mountain. It was Oñate back in the day. And no, so like, and I kind of had the shoulders for it, but I played football for a little bit. Then when I transferred back to California, Southern California, San Dimas High School. Bill and Ted's an actual high school.
And, San Dimas.
Yeah, so we had a stud.
Excellent, by the way, for anybody who remembers that movie.
There you go. So
man, we're really dating ourselves now.
I
know
that. It happens. I know pop culture all day. I got the Bill Simmons references for you guys.
Oh, really? Okay,
we'll
get you. We'll do a pop culture test for you.
We can do it.
All right, but you were back then playing in San Dimas, and
So basically, I told the story about how the way I got into tennis was, I was a football and a basketball player, and kind of had the stigma of like, I don't want to get embarrassed or people call me a dork. And three of the stud football players, Mark Dominguez, Craig Sullivan, and Jake Kuzmak, still own to this day. And they were like, no one's going to make fun of you if you come out with the football players. And I did. And I made varsity as a freshman. It was a great, I love the game. It was kind of cool. It's just, like I said, not to be a quote unquote country club kid, which there's nothing wrong with if you have the monetary means to do so. We did not. And so I kind of got into just being a good athlete, and I got to play partially. And I can give you a segue too for kind of bouncing over the place. My college basketball coach was Jim Hayford, who coached for Seattle University.
Okay.
And so he actually, when he comes to town, I went to dinner, and he unfortunately got let go. But I golfed with Chris Jans. We kind of spoke about Jim Hayford, and Jans is an awesome guy. They're gonna miss him. Cruz is, as you know, it's we had him for a couple years actually than we could have, and he's a stud. He's a great coach, and he's an even better guy.
So you were a basketball, football guy. Then which coach said it was okay to play tennis?
Well, like I said, if it wasn't for those three varsity football guys, that's kind of what was probably my best sport. I told everybody I played college basketball, but I was a better tennis player, and I was a number 6 under Jeff Nelson in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, small NAIA school. They are Division II now, but that's where I got my bread and butter. I had three buddies that I grew up with in Southern California that were stud basketball players, all league champions, all CIF. CIF is what they call over there. And I kind of hitched a ride, so to speak. They had full rides. I was partial. I had academic scholarship, tennis, and basketball. But Sioux Falls, South Dakota treated me right, man. It was about two and a half of the best years of my life. I still go back there and visit some buddies who got caught in that cold, but your boy had to move back to Southern California after I was done.
Well, you know what? Nothing wrong with SoCal. Seems like you love it in that area. What brought you back to Las Cruces? I
have family. So the hidden thing I didn't tell you yet is my sister is actually the principal at LCHS. Michelle Ronga is my sister, and my brother is retired LCPD. So I have family roots here. My mom's here as well. So, like I said, we lived here for 4 years. And for me, I was actually, that's how me and Max get along. I was running a restaurant, bartending, managing for about 15 years. And finally, your boy was getting too old, and I wanted to settle down. So now I teach full-time at Centennial High School. I do special ed inclusion, and I absolutely love it. I have the greatest boss in the world, Mrs. Hindi, Mrs. Hash, and I just got a lot of support, and it's been a blessing for me.
So how did you end up getting the coaching job at Centennial High School?
Well, Miss Prieto, she's a PE teacher, and they kind of got me about a year before I was ready. I'm engaged to a beautiful lady. She's a physician at Memorial Hospital, and so I kind of wanted to wait. We're getting married at the winery at St. Lascombs now, I guess. And basically, she had kind of found out about my resume, and they put the full court press, so to speak.
The full court press.
And they Coach Albertson, like I said, left me a great program, and they a couple kids kind of approached me, and I couldn't say no to the kids. You know what I mean? We have a kid named Alex Chang. He's going to Air Force Academy. He's a phenomenal kid. Actually passed on West Point, and they kind of put the pressure on, and it was time to go. So I was ready to step up, and here we are.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's great to have you. So this is year 1 for you coaching
here?
Sir.
Yes, sir.
And so how was it a few weeks ago at a Las Cruces High meet with your sister there, ready to pick on you a little bit, saying, go Bulldogs, because if I know anything about your sister as a principal, it's all about the Bulldogs.
You are correct in that aspect. And when I wear the red and the gold and the black, it's one of those things where I get made fun of at family dinners, but it is what it is. So like I said, it's a family rivalry. I have 2 nieces. A niece that goes to Mayfield that plays soccer. Her kids play soccer and then baseball over at Cruces. So we're kind of spread out all over the place. 3 high schools kind of running it that way.
Yeah, no, you've been like have a part to every high school going through, and you were at Oñate. So
Yes,
so
Correct.
but it is a town like this. This is how Las Cruces is.
It is. So sibling rivalries, but like I said, we keep it cordial, and it doesn't affect family dinners on Sundays.
I'm sorry, your sister does not keep it not keep it civil.
Blue and red, that's for
you
sure.
think?
Yeah.
Think no, she really does, but she's dedicated to what she does there and
100%.
stuff. So and I know she'll be happy. You the older brother or younger brother?
I'm the youngest of 4, yes sir.
So she's the older sister.
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
so
sir.
she really gets to rub it in.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Especially when they had that, like they said, I know they had an awesome run with the basketball team. In overtime, that was kind of a rough beat, but I was actually cheering for them the one time for state basketball this year when they Volcano Vista, correct?
Yeah, that's right. When they played Volcano Vista just a few weeks ago, tough loss at the pit. I want to talk about your team here, going back to where we are from this season, because you got one more month and you are going to be loading up with a lot of districts and districts that are going to be at Cruces High at your sister's school, if I'm correct on that. Yep. It seems like a lot of matches have been close. Second place, no first place as much yet so far. You got a couple of wins that needed to happen, and you were just right there on the cusp of things. What happened on some of these meets prior, even the Centennial Oregon Mountain one where you were second, and the Cruces one that was just recent?
100%. So like I told you, we were missing a couple guys. We were missing Mitchell Vogel, who was at mock trial. I think he's only played 2 out of our 5 tournaments. And then we had a couple of injuries, but like I said, no excuses at the end of the day. Let next man up, right? So I'm excited about our chances, especially with our men's team for district. Like I told you, favorites don't mean anything until you go out on the court and finish it. So I'm excited about the thing. As far as singles goes, we got Mitchell Vogel now exchange up top. Max's son Jack's a stud doubles player. Sebastian Alvarez, Mateo, and also Adam Holmes is a senior. So we have 3 seniors, so they got the experience on that. They've been around, they know what to do, and that's kind of what I think my job with these guys is, like I said, not being the country club guy. Very, very momentum's big in high school tennis. So
you say country club, it seems like that is just an idea of, and maybe it is a stereotype that has followed the sport for years, but it's anything but that for the people where you like, even if you read Andre Agassi's part or anybody else. But there is that mentality that comes through that it's only monetary for certain kids who can afford it. I believe all the high schools here in this program have a system that will help out people who would never think about playing, give them a chance to play and help them get rackets and everything else they need.
100%. And that's kind of the goal too, is like, I know we did a fundraising thing. It's like, it's equal opportunity for me where I coach. Like I said, whether you have this much or that much, I'm going to make sure my kid has a racket, he has supplies and everything else. And that you want to recruit, right? So for me being a first year coach, like I said, I'm on campus. I want to build a program like how Kathy had it. And so kind of keep the legacy going, but also, maybe go get a football player or a basketball player who had the same stigma that I faced of, well, it's tennis, I don't want to go out. And it's like, why not? They pay for my partial for my college. And so I try to kind of, you can be a tough tennis player. Let's put it that way. It doesn't have to be all, like I said, there's no offense to the country club people. It's just more of, you could be blue collar out there too. We work our tail off. Ask my guys, they run, they don't like it. And I had a legendary basketball coach, his name is Gary Preston, at St. James High School, got retired into the Hall of Fame. And I grew up with that guy where it was, you look at the banners and you didn't ask questions. It's a little bit different now, as you know.
Yes, it's very much different.
Yeah. So, and I've learned, I've had to adapt or die. And I realized if you don't, it's a different thing. You don't just, you got to kind of earn their respect too.
Okay, I'm going to put a scenario for you. Coach Alba, James Alba from Centennial High School. All right, you're there. This is year 1. You're looking ahead to year 2. You mentioned about getting a football player, a basketball player, and you might be surprised. You see a lot of kids down on their phones just walking on hallways. What do you tell them to say, hey, why don't you try this sport? What do you want to see here? What can you bring to them? How do you get them to even want to start thinking about tennis?
I think the main thing is I try to use my story of kind of like, I made fun of it too, or I was basically insecure. Let's be honest. When you're 14, 18 years old.
That's everybody in radio and television. So.
There you go. There you go. I mean, but it's one of those things where like I said, they see me. I'm a decent sized guy. I'm not massive, but I mean, they're like, you play tennis? And I said, yeah. And I said, that's it. I go back to pay for partially in my school. And it taught me a lot about, like, there's etiquette involved. It's like golf. That's one of those things. And we abide by rules, but we also compete. We're out there cheering each other on. And it's, it can get loud and it can get boisterous. I don't know if Cruces has got, you might know the kid. I think he signed for Western New Mexico for football, about 6'5", about 3+. He's out there playing doubles tennis.
Was that Mark Lopez' son? Or?
No. I can't remember his name. I'll find out for you. But they got 2 football players who are out there and they rush the net. They're coordinated, and that's half the thing. Like you said, playing different sports. When I was brought up, you wanted kids to play multiple sports. I think that's kind of gone away. I think you might agree with that, especially with travel ball being year round. I can't say I agree with that, but I'm also not a parent. I've heard certain parents tell me, well, he's got to be year round. Otherwise, he's, little Joey's not going to be this and that. And I can't say I agree with that, but I'm a fair debate. We can open it for conversation. I just think that the more sports you play, the more coordination it's going to bring, more camaraderie it's going to bring, the better leaders it brings. That's just a personal opinion of me.
Well, I also think you're also competing in a new world here where it wasn't like us, where we were just happy to have a beeper and a big brick as a phone back in our day. Now you're looking at, and we had them flipping by that point too. Don't worry.
Yes, sir.
But here you now look ahead, and it is very much competing. You're competing against an E-League now. You're competing against, and I'll even have an E-League coach on here, not from long ago, and because it's under the NMAA, and you're really competing against kids who, the attention span is not there. It is certainly a lot different, and it's certainly quick to fast, and it almost has become a content creator. You're going up against kids who feel that they can be content creators in this part, and then the sports become secondary.
100%. And I'll be honest with you, we had a little powwow amongst our team about kind of like, commitment stuff, and they're great kids. We're just trying to teach them about, like I said, if you have multiple obligations, that also means you have multiple commitments. And we just ask for a fair shake of, like, if you're going to go to orchestra one day or mock trial one day or student council one day, the tennis team needs you too.
But isn't that the toughest part of the challenge as a coach? I mean, you've got parents that are pushing their kids, saying you need to do this, this, and this. It almost feels like parents today are more rushed than we've ever been to make sure our kids are into everything that they can be in. Be in this club, do this, do this. It looks good on this, it looks good on that. But yet, it's now like, okay, but they also now are, like you said, missing commitments. And sometimes, oh, wow, they missed a match. Yeah. That's not what you want to happen.
100%. It's almost, my joke was, did you read my journal? Because I don't have a journal, but that's kind of what I was thinking, was like, hey, man, like, the multiple commitments and the resume building, and that's fine. But also you gotta respect the commitment. You know what I mean? Like, I'm out here, and as you know, the stipends, let's not get into that. That's a whole different thing. For what we do, like I said, I'm not coaching just one team. I'm coaching the guys, the girls, and everybody in between. And that's my accountability, is I took that job. But also, you know what I mean? Like, when you go out there and you put those hours in, prime example, when we go play in El Paso, I'm at Centennial High at 6:30 in the morning. I'm not getting home till 7 p.m. It's a long day, man. And so for me, I don't mind doing it for the kids. Obviously, it's not for the money. I've coached since 2003 back in Cali. We had a very successful program. But same thing, I'm from a little different cloth, cut from different cloth, I tell these guys, and I am going to get a little more in your face. And that's not the tennis way, so to speak. But for me, I wasn't a tennis kid. You know what I mean? It became one of those things that I loved. But I want to tell these guys, you can still compete, as you know, basketball, football, baseball. Mm-hmm. So I asked one of them, I'll give you an example of a true life situation. I said, what do you think Coach Ocampo, who I'm a buddy with, Coach Ocampo would say if the star quarterback missed a couple practices for whatever it was? I said, do you think there'd be a penalty? Well, yeah, Coach, he wouldn't miss it. I said, so then why do you guys not belittle yourself, but why don't you take it the same way? You're still a sport. Why can't you be as big as football, basketball, and baseball? You know what I'm saying?
Okay, but
I'm trying to instill that confidence in them.
But what the kid probably won't tell you is that mom and dad are much more stricter during the football season, and they don't see tennis as that sport.
You'd be right, and so that my point is that your assessment is correct as far as that's my main battle. Is when we had our little powwow, they were like, well, education's first. And I said, I understand that. Mm-hmm. And I looked at every one of them in the eyes and said, have I ever said, no, you can't go to this? And they said, no, Coach. And I said, that's the tough part of my job. You know what I mean? And saying they're legitimate reasons. They're not lying, saying they're going to whatever else and going with their girlfriend. They're going to an education thing or a band thing. I don't have as you know, we're not basketball, football. We don't have a period. You go to El Paso, Texas, they're paying them $15,000 and they get a 6 period.
But if you have a football player coming into play, he might be doing 2 sports in the spring. He might be doing track and tennis, or he might be doing golf and tennis. Yeah. You never know. That's always been the key in this town 100%. For the years that go by, or even baseball. And God heaven forbid, try to do baseball and tennis. Exactly. Because I don't think that would actually work. There's no way to make those two work. But Correct. The other ones that there is a little leeway to do things and such. But band and sports have become something else that worked out pretty well. And it goes to show credit to the music programs that have done well here too. Mm-hmm. So like I said, this has become one of those parent things, but I think after a while we forget that the kids need a break. Oh, 100%. And they will catch up, and those breaks will catch up, and you will see it at events. And I'm sure in this first part of the season, that I think that's what I've always understood about tennis, is that it isn't until April, May when you start to see things really get going.
Well, and I'll give you once again, like a real life example. I learned the hard way what you're saying, because I'm coming from one place where I had kids in California that were on the honor roll, that valedictorians, but they weren't, the practice. I just feel like the missing of the practice wasn't as big of an issue due to extracurricular activities. So that's why I kind of like, implored more about, hey, what's going on here as far as whatever else. But like you said, I'm realizing, coach, it ain't district yet. It's not state yet. And I'm coming from a program where you compete from day one. And you're right. Attention span's gone over. It's the phone and it's this and that. It's a max preps and whatever else. And when are you ranked? And I'm thinking, all right, what are we doing here? You know what I mean? I'm a dinosaur. Put it that way. Don't let the young face fool you. I'm a dinosaur.
But you know what? That's part of the challenge in coaching in this new realm here. And I'm sure it's also at the other high schools and everything such. I want to get more into what we can see in district and what's come out with your team so far. The best way I can always put it to tennis to anybody who understands, it's a lot different than the pro sets. They're not playing as many sets. How many sets do boys and girls play?
So when you go to the district, you'll play a singles match and a doubles match, best out of 3.
Best out of 3.
Yes, and California.
That's boys and girls.
Correct. And California's completely different. And here, I'll give you a little lowdown that I found out. It might be interesting to you, it might not be. So back home, you have, if you play singles, you can't play doubles. You got to choose one or the other.
This is in California, right?
Correct. And you'll play the 1, 2, and the 3. So the 1 will play the 1, but then you play a regular 6-game set. You go the 1, but then he'll rotate to the 3 or the 2. Well, that's 1 because New Mexico has a rule said then you can't stack. Well, stack what means is like if I put my number 1 guy right at the 4, that's called stacking. Well, I was like, well, why don't we change that? And you know what they told me? It's because you don't have enough courts and there's not enough money. Basically being when you put the guys and girls together, you don't have enough time in a day to rotate. So they literally have to do the format differently. They won't tell you because it's the money, but it's because of money. They should have a JV and a varsity, in my opinion, my humble opinion.
In New Mexico,
correct.
That's the sports.
And that, like I said, if you want to build it up, well, there's not a market for it. Well, you've never really pushed for it. I understand guys like I said, I'm new to the area, but guys like Gadsden, some of those guys struggle for a team. But what about Centennial that has 25 to 30 kids sometimes? Like, so we get the raw deal because what? Because, you know what I mean? And there's other teams that want to play the JV thing.
Yeah, but in Centennial, they have the most courts out of anyone right now, don't they?
We have 6, and I believe, I think Crucis has the same amount. We have 6, and we don't have lights either, but we have 6 courts, yeah.
Is lighting needing to be brought in, you think? Or do you think
I was told that it was from my awesome athletic director, Mr. David Carrillo, that it was like a light pollution thing. Also told us, that's what they said, but I was wondering why a school with a beautiful facility, as Centennial is, with only 11 years old, they didn't put lights in, but I was told it was a light pollution thing.
Well, exactly. if this is the case, why don't we just build a center right next to the baseball fields? Right there, we have some room if we can get it. But
yes, so it's been interesting, though. Like I said, like as you know, politics do exist in a small town, and I'm kind of learning the ropes, and so trying to keep the mouth shut and listen more.
I guess that finally explains it. After all these years, we never had lights at the high school, so you play early at 9, and in the spring, thankfully enough. Now that the time change has happened and probably will stay permanent after next year, you can have those games during the day. But it also, I remember I had a foreign exchange student who played high school tennis for Mayfield, and he could end up playing 2 or 3 matches, like you said, stacking. So he could play in a singles and then go help out his teammate in the doubles. Correct. And, somebody got hurt, and he's going to be in another doubles.
Yeah.
And that player could get really 4 matches in one day.
Yeah, and that's the thing, too. So for tournaments, there's pros and cons of the tournaments. I can tell you that their pros is – if I'm just saying this right, someone coach can call in, and if I'm wrong, but I think you only get 11 matches. Once again, a funding thing. In New Mexico or in California, we were playing strictly dual matches. The duels when I play Mayfield or I play Crucis.
Yeah.
While here, the reason what I was told why they do tournaments is you can play X amount of teams in one day and count it as one match, which makes sense. They're kind of going, I don't want to say going around the rules, but they're saying, hey, let's play kids from like just past tournament. We had an awesome tournament with some studs. Farmington, Hobbs, Carlsbad, and there's one more I can't think of, but like those were some great teams. And we competed, but we beat Carlsbad and then we lost 2. But those are some stud teams. But it's good because from what I was told, that we kind of beat up people in the past. So when we go to state, we got walloped. So I told my guys, this is good for you. It's okay to, as you know, you can learn through adversity. I don't want us to sweep everybody and do whatever else. You're not really learning from that. You're learning when you're getting your tail kicked in and kind of going to those 3-set matches, which we had about 5 against Hobbs. You learn something about yourself, you know what I mean? And that's for me, they get down themselves. My thing is between the ears. All right, what can we do? Momentum. Like I said, I've beaten many kids at a better skill level, but when I'm up here, and that's what these guys are trying to get. And I am aggressive. I am kind of like, every blue moon, a four-letter profanity might come out, and they're not used to that. And that's okay. And I tell them that's an insecurity on my part. I shouldn't say any profanity words, but I am who I am right at the end of the day, and I like to compete.
Well, tennis, like golf, to me, seems like an expensive sport because you got to get the clubs. For tennis, obviously, you got to get the rackets. Rackets have gone up in price. Tennis balls are back up in price. It's not like where it was at Walmart where I go buy them in the old days. So, what does a parent have to commit to this, and what does a booster club have to do to help you get this together?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the highlights of my season actually was in my opinion, obviously it's going to be biased, but the best booster support in the area. Obviously, Max Bauer that runs Amador Live, he has been nothing but hospitable, and he basically told me when I came in, when they were trying to talk me into coach, and he said, "I'll take care of this stuff. Don't worry about it." And he has kept his word. We've had pasta dinners for the kids, functions, fundraisers, and those guys have taken care of me. And like I said, I'm back. You and me. I grew up with a P&J, might be an Uncrustable. These guys are getting Chick-fil-A meals and on the road. But I mean, I really respect the small town. Coming back to Cruces, I like that. You know what I mean? Like these guys.
But these are parents that are putting their time. They're going out. They're asking businesses, or and I feel that gets a stigma. Like, oh, look where they're getting all this money from. I'm like, well, yeah, it's to support this program. Yeah. This is a sport that costs money. It's not one that happens. And the fact that we have all 4 of our area schools that have a team, it's fine. Now they're doing a lot to try to get that team fitted. Correct. They're competing a lot, and I think we're a little stretched thin. It wasn't like back in our day when we had 3 high schools and you were fighting to get on that team.
It's true. It's a big difference too. And like speaking of coaches, I want to give a big shout out to Judy Harless at Mayfield and Coach Joseph Comque at Oregon Mountain. They have helped me immensely as far as, like I said, I came in there and you can tell I have no problem talking. So, but
you're learning. You're going to ask the questions.
100%. So I'm over at the rules convention on a 76 coaches for Zoom, and I'm just piping up, being like, "Hey, well, why are we doing it this way?" And then one of the farm team guys reached out and said, "Here's why we don't have a guys and a girls team," and kind of explain the transportation of it. And so those guys have really helped me a lot. Like in our tournaments that we hosted, one with Oregon Mountain and one with Mayfield. Those coaches basically led the way, and I kind of followed. So I really wanted to give them a shout out, because they didn't have to do that for me. They could have just been like, "Hey, learn it yourself." And I've been really happy with the support I've received.
All right, I'm going to bring up the schedule here so people can see. This is on maxpreps.com. Because talk about a April to remember, and this happens in all the tennis teams. They're all going that way. If I look closely at your schedule here, and I'm going to go ahead and make this full screen here so people can see this, and they know exactly what's going on. We're going to take a look at your schedule as it breaks down here. Okay. And you go right off the bat, and you're looking at Alamo. You're taking this week off, spring break. It's funny because there's going to be track meets going on in the spring. Correct. But then here you are, you go right to Alamo, and they're a tough district team. You got Deming, too. That's also a tough district team. So this is the rest of district the rest of the way. And you got to be ready to go here. And already off the bat, you get 8 days to relax. Then you get 3 days in between the Mayfield and then a trip to Deming. So this is really going to start picking up in this month.
100%. So basically April is kind of like you said, our money month, so to speak. Alamo Gordo has got some studs. And from what I've told, it's a little hostile in Alamo Gordo. They're not a big fan.
Nah, you don't think that.
So I believe their boys doubles won district last year. They had two big kids. And I'm looking forward to playing against them, competing against them. Then we got Mayfield. Like I said, Judy's an excellent coach. Our guys should bode well. I'm hoping so. And our girls, they got a stud. Her name's Elise, and she won district as a freshman. And that's still so she's a stud, and looking forward to compete against them. My thing is this, when you go into a match with someone like that who's the favorite, you got nothing to lose. You know what I mean?
Well, I got to ask this other question. How's officiating for tennis? Do we have enough officials for tennis, or is it becoming a bit of a struggle? And
you don't have them. So it's basically the kids call their own line calls.
Yeah, their own line calls.
Yeah, the only time that you'll have it, if you have like more than one description, we try to tell them, hey, handle it amongst yourselves. That's what you should be able to do. But every blue moon, like this past weekend, I got called as a line judge.
So so you get called. So when we have these tournaments, the kids are calling their own points and their own 100%. Lines.
Yeah, there's no way. We don't have the funding for. We can't even.
So how many parents go at it with each other at this thing here, going, "Oh, that was in, that was out."
That's one thing I'm dealing with, because, like I said,
I can only imagine that's a nightmare.
Well, it hasn't been bad yet, but I've seen rumblings of it, and that's when you try to nip it in the bud. As far as my thing is this. I'm going to control my kids, and I ask other coaches to do the same. Meaning, like, if my kid's acting up and not proper etiquette, and especially a parent, I'm going to say something.
So it isn't until district or state that we start to see more officials come in?
Well, as far as like since my first year, you don't have them in districts. Maybe when you get to state.
The state, because I've always seen them there.
Okay, yes, and I've never been to state yet. Well, hopefully we go this year both individually and as a team. But no, it can get here. I'll give you. You want to know my personal?
Sure, go ahead.
So. And line calls, this is how it goes. The first one, you let go. Second one, you use the quote, "Are you sure?" And then if it gets repetitive, then you might have to call a line judge. But the goal is for these kids to communicate. That's the other thing, too. I've had kids get intimidated. I have my little 85-pound kid back in California, and there was this big old basketball kid, and I said, he's not going to go over the net and beat you up. You got to make your calls and you got to stand up for yourself.
And
that's what I've seen is people getting there's bullying going on, to be honest with you.
Oh yeah, no, but I'm also going to say, I know there for the longest time, there's not been, we see tennis on television. You think there's ball runners there. No. You're getting your own balls over in high school.
It goes in that desert. You better wipe those stickers off before you get it back.
Have you had that where the kids go out in the desert? And
man, we're in Centennial. We're in the middle of a desert. So that ball goes over. It's kind of watch for the rattlers when it starts getting warmer.
Well, then you worry over at Mayfield where it's like, okay, did I go to the classrooms over there? Okay.
Exactly.
And over at Cruces Upgrade, it's in the band area. Yeah. Or the football stadium, And Oregon Mountain, it's in the parking lot or to the desert there too.
Correct.
I'm looking forward to this. I always thought there was more line judges in there.
No. So they literally, the etiquette is you call your own, and then like I said, if you can't handle amongst each other, then you'll call it over. Like I said, we had a guy, and luckily they handled it correctly. A kid of mine came up and said, "Coach, I think they're kind of hosing us type thing." And I said, "Do you want a line judge? Make the call. But if you do, it's for both sides." So myself and the other coach went over there, and we both kind of. And then here's what happens: you don't make the calls. The only time they use the line judges is if they have a question on the call.
Well, then my guess is, how do you keep a crazy guy like Max, a parent, from going nuts there? Because I'm going to tell you right now, I bet he's already yelled at that 6 times, Max, haven't you? Oh, don't worry. I'm going to take the camera out there for that. Make some TikTok videos of that one.
I love it. No, Max has been good. Actually, he actually came to the last tournament. And like I said, we have that restaurant rowdy mentality. He's been an excellent mentor for me as far as taking care of the local side of things, and he's been a great help.
Yeah, no, like I said, I'm bringing a camera there. There's some TikTok videos of him going, that was in. Yeah. You can't be serious. I know he's going to say all that stuff. So
I think, like I said, when him and I first met, just knowing my background, that I'm a pretty competitive guy. I think we kind of hit it off right away.
All right. So let me ask a question. Do any of your kids do a John McEnroe impersonation, or do they even know who he is?
I'd have to ask if they even know who he was. I mean, you cannot be serious. It's like, I love McEnroe. Johnny Mac was the guy growing up. You know what I mean? Like, he's before my time, but like I said, if you watch the 30 for 30s and the commercials, and him and his brother, great commentators as well.
All right, do a little pop culture quiz on you before we take off here. Three tennis questions. Name the tennis player that was in the movie Trainwreck. The famous tennis player that was in the movie Trainwreck.
Is that the one with LeBron James and Hader? I'm trying to think. It wasn't Federer, was it?
No.
Male or female?
Yeah, female.
Was it Serena?
Nope.
Was Kornikova wasn't in it? Was she?
Nope. Chris Everett. There.
I was thinking about the Jim Rome scene with Chris. Call me Chris again.
Call me Chris again. All right, another question for you. Sure. King Richard, obviously, hopefully one of the best movies part there. Who's the main actor in the film?
Oh, Will Smith.
There you go.
I'll give you a side piece on that. So where we call ours, you guys call it district, we call it league. Mm-hmm. The very first tournament they have, it's called the Claremont Club in Claremont, California. That's where they played it at. And I was like, this looks familiar because they have a grand court. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I didn't know that place. And I saw the credits, Claremont Club, California. So my team has competed at that same place when they filmed the movie.
The one of the biggest stadiums in tennis in LA is next to a famous soccer team stadium. What soccer team stadium is it next to?
Galaxy, Home Depot Center.
The Dignity Center or Home Depot.
Yeah.
They used to call it the StubHub Center, but it's not exactly. Not that way.
Things, just like kind of we the Honda Center was before, you know what I mean? Like where the Ducks play, and then I'm a big Angels fan. I'm not a Dodger fan, which you can get beat up in my neck of the woods for saying that. But I was even though I lived in San Dimas, was probably about 40 minutes outside of LA, and then 25 from Orange County. But I was a Halo guy.
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Who played the character Rufus?
I know Keanu Reeves, and then what's the other guy's name?
Alex Winter. But yeah,
Rufus.
Who played Rufus?
I can't think of who it is.
Man, I'm really getting him on the cop. That would be George Carlin, the actor, the comedian actor. There you go.
R.I.P.
Emma Stone played what famous tennis player in what movie Against Two?
My pop culture is slacking right now, and that shouldn't be happening. Oh man, I'm thinking of the one with Wimbledon was with the Anglo girl. Emma Stone is too as well, but I'm thinking of. I can't think of it.
Okay, so Billie Jean. She played Billie Jean King.
Did she?
Yeah, and she was also in the movie where she took on the gentleman. I can't remember his name, so I forgot.
Oh, when they had the
boy versus girl match.
Yes, he was like comedian / actor or whatever he was.
Yeah. I'll leave you with one final question. How many times do the girls want to play the guys in tennis and beat them on your team?
How many do they want, or how many times do they actually beat them?
How many times they actually beat them? Because now you're going to put the guys on the blast.
Well, the top two girls can compete with the guys, almost all the guys. Grace Chang and Erin Lee are studs, and the guys know better, and so they don't talk too much smack to them because they know. And I do. So what I do is we don't do gender. It's level. So Erin and Grace, when I team up in doubles, we have a little warm up drill where they go against her older brother's a year older, and so no, they can compete. Don't get
Does that sibling rivalry get a little interesting?
You know, it's funny. They're both competitive, but Grace has, like I said, I think has that state experience, and she kind of has. Erin's a freshman, and I kind of said, "Hey, take her under your wing." I think people get mixed up as far as you have to be super vocal to be a leader. You can also lead by example. And Grace is obviously phenomenal student, but I pulled her inside and said, "Hey, like this is your duty too. You're a stud tennis player, but be a better person, be a leader because her whole family is amazing, and it's like I expect it out of you. I do have different expectations for some people like that, and it's like bring them along."
Well, Coach, it's going to be a busy month.
Yes,
Get ready for it. Hope it goes well for you.
100%.
District's going to be fun, and it's only at your sister's place. And only your sister can say, "Oh, there's my little brother. He's trying to coach."
I don't know if she claims you or not. Like the different last names help, so it's good. It's good.
No. Now I know
She's a
that.
workaholic. She's doing those 80-hour weeks.
You think?
Yeah,
that's the understatement. She does a great job. She
Yes,
really
sir.
does care for her school there.
100%.
Good luck to you, Coach.
Thank
Look
you
forward
so
to a great
much.
season. Thanks for
Appreciate you.
having us on as well, Max.
Excellent.
We look forward to getting a lot of video on you at the next meet at Alamogordo or in Deming. So we'll see how that plays out.
100%.
And, of course, we're looking forward to District. Make sure to go support our local tennis players and also cheer them on. They'll do their own line calls. You don't need to bug them on that. They can do that as well.
Absolutely.
All right. We'll see.
Thank you for your time.
No, thank you for your time. James Alba joining us here on our Mesilla Valley News Sports Podcast. That wraps it up for this week. We'll be back next week, and we'll have a lot more to discuss. And hopefully we're talking with Mario and the new NMSU men's basketball coach, hopefully down the road, because I know if one thing Mario knows, it's recruiting time and needs to get that going. So we'll find out how things play out as the season goes by. For Mesilla Valley News Sports Podcast from the Amador Live, I'm Ernesto Garcia. This show is presented by Ragged Apparel, nmshirts.com.